thank you all for having me. I guess I have a mic on. So I'm Russ Angold from Ekso Bionics, and today we're going to talk about Iron Man coming to life. To start, I want to pose a question to you. How many people in this room know what an exoskeleton is? Raise your hands. Okay. In 2004, when we first started working on this technology, if I would have asked the same question, maybe 10% would have raised your hands. But thanks to Hollywood and the movies, oops, sorry. Back it up. Can you get it there? Oh, that's stuck. Anyways, thanks to Hollywood and the movies, we have Iron Man. Everyone knows what an exoskeleton is, which is great. Because in 2004, it was really hard to get people to believe in the technology you're working on when they don't even know what it is. And I will say, Iron Man did get something right. It's all about the power supply. So what were we working on in 2004? We were working on our first exoskeleton, which we call the Hull. And this started as a DARPA program, which was science fiction, to make an exoskeleton to unburden the soldier. Right? It's the number 2 issue for the Army. These soldiers are carrying a tremendous amount of weight, and it's resulting in a tremendous amount of injuries. 65% of evacs from Iraq and Afghanistan were due to musculoskeletal injuries. So it's a really big issue, and we're still trying to solve it. We're working with Lockheed Martin. We partnered with them in 2009 to work on this exoskeleton. It's in testing with the Army, and things are going well. But as we were developing the technology, people kept coming to us and saying, you guys can help people walk again. And when you first hear that, it sounds like a pretty audacious goal. Next slide. Having issues. Technical difficulties. So, I won't push the button anymore. So what we started talking to people, and there's 265,000 people in the U.S. that have a spinal cord injury and are in a wheelchair. And we sort of take walking for granted. We have a video here to kind of show that. I don't think it'll play, so we can move past it. But really, I mean, walking's a big deal. And for all these spinal cord injury patients in the country, when they get an injury, the first thing they ask their doctor is, will I ever walk again? And the doctor says, no. And so we said, okay, let's figure out how to tackle that problem. We were working in the space, working on bionics. We actually started working on some bionic prosthetics. And in 2004, there were bionic prosthetics, but nothing existed to help the paralyzed population. I have a picture here. What you see on your right is the bionic knee from a company called Exosuit that was developed in 2004. And the same time frame, what you see on the right is basically a set of rigid leg braces that were used to help a spinal cord injury patient get up and walk. And the doctors were prescribing these things because it's healthy to get up and walk. And when the doctors came to us and said, this is the state of the art of the technology, our response was, well, we can do better than that. And so what we did, next slide, was develop the Exosuit. So what it is, it's basically a wearable robot that a user straps on. You can stand up, you can walk in clinical supervision. It's got 4 motors that act as basically electric muscles to power the individuals. It's got a bunch of sensors, onboard batteries, and allows individuals to get up and walk and get exercise and rehabilitation. I'll show a video of, maybe the next video will play. Maybe not. Not playing. Okay. So in lieu of the video, I will actually just show you in person. So I'd like to introduce you to Matt Tilford, a real Iron Man. Matt, can you come up? So we'll do a live demonstration of the suit for you so you can see what it does. So Matt was injured 5.5 years ago and was one of those individuals where the doctor said, no, you're not going to walk again. And so we've been developing this technology since, I'd say, 2007, and refining it over the years, Started branching out to clinical partners last year to start getting some testing in a relevant environment, and actually launched the product February 14th of this year, and have started delivering them throughout the country, and actually there's some in Europe as well. So the device is to be used in a rehabilitation setting, so it's adjustable. It fits users from 5'2" to 6'2", up to 220 pounds. And the idea is someone comes into their rehab hospital, puts this exoskeleton on, walks for an hour a day to get some therapy and get upright and walking, and then they can trade out and you can get other patients in there during the day. But that's not where we want to stop. This is just where we started. Our goal is to make a device that Matt someday can take home with them and use on a daily basis, really a mobility exo, a mobility platform. So today, it's a rehabilitation tool, but in the future, we're going for mobility. So you can see he's getting strapped in here with the help of Mike. It's the same thing that happened in a rehabilitation setting. Helping him get in, strap the feet in, get buckled up. One of the key things that was interesting that we learned from the working on the military exos early days was that we had some of the same requirements. The military exoskeleton had to be adjustable for different users. Individuals wanted to be able to get in and out of it quickly. And the power efficiency numbers that we were trying to hit on the military side, all of that translated into our product here, and has really helped us start to penetrate that market. It's just about ready. So Matt, what's your injury level?
I am a T10, T12 fused.
So where is that in respect to my body?
That is right at my waist.
Right at your waist?
Yes.
So do you have any sensation from there down?
I do have some sensation in my left leg.
Okay.
And a little bit of movement in my hip flexor.
Perfect. Tucking in the mic. You normally don't have the mics on in the rehabilitation setting. All right, you ready to do some walking?
I am.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Matt was able to walk away from that doctor telling him no. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience in Exo?
I started using Exo in December of last year. And since I've used Exo, I've seen a really more exciting life. I look at life a lot different. I appreciate things more different that I couldn't do before, but with Exo's help that I'm going to be able to do in the future. So I'm excited just to get it back in the home, or get it in the home so that I could start doing a normal daily life again.
Why don't you take a few steps and show them how it works? We actually launched a new software. So like I said, we started launching these on February 14th of this year, and we've already come out with a software update. There's 3 ways an individual can actually walk an Exo. There's what we call first step, where the physical therapist actually triggers the step with a push button. And that's usually how somebody starts out. Then they'll graduate on, once they get comfortable, to what we call active step, where Matt actually has a button on the crutch that he can actually signal the step and take the step. And then how Matt's walking now is what we call pro step. And we have enough sensors on the machine to actually know that Matt has shifted his weight and balance and wants to take that next step. And so it automatically takes it for him. What are your thoughts on pro step?
Freedom. The physical therapist is still there right now, but I'm in complete control again, which is something that was taken away from me for 5.5 years. So mentally, it's uplifting.
So Matt asked in the green room if he could actually take the Ekso home.
Every time I get in it, I ask if I can take it home.
So that's obviously our goal. We had to start here with spinal cord injury in the rehabilitation center. It's new technology. It's on the bleeding edge. We're dealing with the status quo. I mean, nothing's changed in wheelchairs for over 500 years. So we're working with these partner centers to understand how this device will be used in a clinical setting. What are the medical benefits of this? And then in the backside, on the tech side, we're constantly working on new technologies to drive the technology forward and get to that device that Matt can take home, take out for strolls. I don't know if you're a golfer. We hear all the time, if we could make an Ekso that would solve a golf swing, we'd make a lot of money. So that's the Ekso. Next slide. Like we said, we're in 21 centers now in 8 months. We hope to have 40 Eksos out by the end of the year. So the exciting thing for me, having worked on it for 8 years now, is that we really have taken that science fiction, DARPA hard project and found a real product for it. It's not science fiction anymore. It's not what we all thought it was going to be, but it's not that technology widget anymore. It's actually bringing it to a product that has value. And next slide. And right now we're only addressing the spinal cord injury population, which is interesting because it's the smallest market, but we have very aggressive users like Matt here that want to be up, want to be walking. It's a young population. So I think that was a critical step in deciding who we were going to go after first to help walk again. And now you can see with the stroke, cerebral palsy, MS, there's a lot of individuals out there that could use gait therapy, and we're actively working on those projects now. Next slide. And then we see exosuits kind of as a platform-based technology. We have technology on either end of the spectrum, from military to health, and right now working on ways of bringing it in from those fringes and kind of covering the spectrum. But industrial applications, $50 billion in workman's comp claims for back injury. Can we use exosuits to help solve those problems? You want to go hiking when you're 75 years old and bring the kitchen sink with you. Can we make exoskeletons for that? The population is getting older. Can exos help solve that problem? So we think there's applications across all markets and all fields, and that's what we're working on today. And you see a true life Iron Man standing here in front of you. Next slide. And that's it. Any questions? Yes.
I gotta wait for Mike.
Oh.
Well, this is totally cool. Congratulations. I do a lot of work with people with severe disabilities, including people with severe spinal cord injuries that are more high level than yours are. Have you been able to do this with a quads yet, or is this still paras?
We have. We're trying to build that inclusion criteria. That's why it's so important to have these. We have the top 10 rehab hospitals on our side, helping us figure out who can fit in this criteria. Right now, anyone that fits inside that inclusion criteria, which it usually comes down to enough arm strength to do a self-transfer. So Matt being able to Matt, by the way, has the biggest arms I've ever seen. I mean, his forearms don't fit in the crutches. But the ability to do a self-transfer and flexibility. And flexibility is key. If you've been sitting in a wheelchair for 20 years, the Ekso is going to walk you again, and so we need to make sure that the patient has enough flexibility to go through that range of motion so they don't get hurt. If they meet those inclusion criteria, 100% of the patients that meet that get in the Ekso and walk their first time. And we've had I think we're over at 400 people up and walking again today. Oh, and so the second part of your question, though, was the level of injury. The highest level injury we've had in an Ekso was a C1, C2 incomplete. There was some residual arm strength, and it was a challenge. We were trying to push those inclusion criteria. So we've had a lot of levels. Yes?
You made a comment at the beginning talking about the power supply. Obviously, what we're seeing Matt in right now is really cool, but we also saw something much larger and much heavier in the movie Avatar last year. Mm-hmm. Something like that would require a lot more power. What do you use to power these things at the moment, and what are the different potential sources?
Sure. So the power consumption problem was a big issue. The first exoskeleton we made used about 2 kilowatts. So think of your lawnmower engine running on the back of you trying to run this exoskeleton. It was a neat proof of concept. It was the world's first untethered exoskeleton. I mean, it was a technology marvel. But at the end of the day, it was a self-licking ice cream cone. I mean, it only carried its own weight, and so there was no value there. So we really tried to figure out how to solve that power problem. And we did it by mimicking humans. I mean, you and I don't burn a lot of energy if we're standing here and not doing any work. And so we tried to model the exos after that so that we actually only use power when the exo's moving, when the exo's doing work. And then this exoskeleton is actually just powered by lithium batteries. Now, we as a company get to benefit from all the mobile phones and the laptop and all the battery technologies getting developed in all other industries. We're just going to take that and include it on here and keep improving our performance. But right now, this exoskeleton can walk for about 3 hours. And then you can swap out batteries and put new ones on. Yep. There's a mic.
I'll wait. Hello, William Jolitz with Lux. One question I have is, how far are you along regulatory approvals? And in particular, have you been able to show efficacy so that it is possible to make this more accessible to markets by being included in, for example, insurance and other HIPAA-related?
Yep. Great question. So the question's about FDA and insurance reimbursement. On the FDA side, again, the technology is non-invasive. So we're actually a Class 1 medical device. And we think we can stay there. Right now, we use it under supervision. We're going to the rehab hospitals, the centers. And what they're helping us do is they're doing a bunch of studies. We just got inked a pan-European study. I think there's 13 centers that are going to be involved in that study to see what are the clinical benefits of exoskeleton. And all that data is going to be critical as we go towards that personal mobility exo that Matt can take home in 2014. Yep.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Mary Fallon. I just have lots of questions about this, but I'll just keep it to a few. I was wondering its cost, and have you talked to the producers of the Iron Man movie to see if they could fund some for the rehab centers? And then secondly, what does it feel like to be in it? How much does it weigh? What is it, how does it feel to get that kind of assistance, Matt?
I'll let Matt answer the question first.
I feel one with it. It's nice and snug on me, and I don't feel any of the weight. It bears my weight.
The device itself weighs about 44 pounds. But all that weight gets transferred, again, building on our legacy technology, it gets transferred all the way down to the ground. So Matt's bearing his own weight, and the Exo is bearing its own weight. Oh, the cost? Right now, we sell them for $140,000 to rehab centers. So they're acquiring it as a piece of capital equipment and using it. That's why we have to keep working on the technologies to get that price down if we're really going to get into that personal market. Yep. Right there.
Hi, I've got 2 quick questions for you. The first one is, what sort of technology is needed for the suit to be self-balancing and not require the crutches? And the second one is, it seemed to be almost silent when it was moving. Why did you decide not to put in those cool robot moving noises?
That's 2 really good questions. So on the noise, we've gotten difference of opinions on that, whether it should be completely silent or have that cool robotic sound. We erred on the silent side, but maybe we can adjust that in the future and turn it up. But we spent a lot of time and effort to try to make the machine quiet.
I still want to go to the library.
And I'm sorry, what was the first question? Oh, the self-balancing. So it's interesting because there are technologies out there that will do robotically move your legs on a treadmill. And what we found talking to clinicians and PTs is that if Matt isn't actively engaged in balancing right now, he'll fall over. And so, but we want that. We want Matt actively engaged in the process of walking so that the nerves are stimulating from his brain going down his spinal column, and then he's getting the actual walking therapy, and the nerves are getting stimulated down there. And we think that's some of the interesting things that are going to happen. So we have some preliminary data back from Kessler, which they found there was some increased muscle firing as one of the early indicators. Now, we don't know what that means, but it's exciting as some preliminary data. Yep.
What do you feel were your breakthrough? What were the major technological breakthroughs that made this possible for you?
I think solving the power issue was paramount. If you couldn't make this device run on batteries and it still had a gas engine on there, we wouldn't be here today. Matt wouldn't be standing up here. So the power consumption was huge and making the device efficient. I think the other the key thing that we found, because in the early days when we were really small, there was only 3 of us, then 7 of us. We were just kind of going all over the place on the technology side. And it was really finding what's that killer app for the technology. Not building technology for technology's sake, but what are you building it for? And then once we found that killer app that had a lot of value, going after that and doing just what you need. I mean, it really was that set of leg braces, that was the state of the art. And our mission was to do better than that. So when we get to the self-balancing, I mean, we could have stayed in the lab for years trying to figure out self-balancing. But just doing better than that and getting it out there sooner to start to get the feedback from the clinicians and the people that are using it, that was a critical step for us. Yes?
Space applications, wasting in space, and the opposite of what is happening with Matt. Matt needs help. In space, you need resistance.
Yep.
So that you can build the muscle, and so you want it to fight you while you're actually moving around inside of the spacecraft. Have you looked into that? Is that a market that you're interested in?
We like to call that device the exosizer. And actually, NASA is looking into that, and they're actively working on a project right now to use an exoskeleton for exercise in space, to do exactly that. And it turns out you want the random disturbances in the exercise, because if you have a constant motion, you don't actually get as much benefit out of that. Last question?
Thank you for being here and very impressive demonstration. My name is Charles Che. I'm with Yummy Melon Software. Question is, how do you deal with grades like stairs?
So right now the device is used in a clinical setting. This device doesn't have the software on it to do stairs. We're not going after that right now, but that's going to be critical for the mobility side. So right in the workshop back, we have 40 engineers working on all these problems that you're going to experience in that mobility platform, getting around day to day, going up and down escalators, going up and down stairs, going over a curb, slopes, offset, all those things have to be addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.